guys, welcome back to my channel DevOps by Sichiko. So today we are going to see how we deploy our Next.js application in AWS Amplify. Before we start, what are the things here I need to cover? I plan to cover is what is AWS Amplify, when to use Amplify and when to not, and the live deployment of the Next.js website. Yes, I create a dummy website which holds that full stack thing like front end, back end, as well as that DynamoDB for the storage thing, basically the database. And let's see start. So first, what is AWS Amplify? Uh, Imagine if you are a web developer, you are a full stack developer, you need to deploy your application. So when you try to deploy your application, the basic thing is you just deploy the application in a server, right? If you try to deploy your application in a server, first, what are the steps you done? First, you go to the GitHub, and then you clone your repository to your server. For example, uh, we take that example of EC2 instances. EC2 instance is nothing but a server which is provided by AWS. So we are just clone the repository in our EC2 instance and we are just installing what are the packages and the dependencies we need to install for that application. Then we try to deploy our application. So imagine if you are a beginner in cloud, as well as if you are a full stack developer, you don't have enough time to deploy the application. Uh, like uh, you don't have a time to set up that actual services, because your ultimate goal is to deploy your application, and the application should be above access by anyone, public access, not anyone is considered about what are the services or what are the infrastructures you are building for that to deploy the application, right? So to resolve that issue, AWS provides that service called AWS Amplify, which is a form of function as a code. What is function as a code means, you don't need to create any infrastructure service to deploy your code. Instead of that, you are just focusing on the functions, which is leads to deploy your application within a short period of time. So I think that's I hope you all understand what is AWS Amplify. Next, when do you use AWS Amplify and when do not? If you are a beginner of cloud, as well as your full stack application is simple, like if you are doing any branding websites or launching things, in that time AWS Amplify is a good solution for us to do. But if you are doing a complex web application, like having a huge number of backend things, uh, I think AWS Amplify is not a good choice. We'll go with other services. We go with that infrastructure as a core things. So, like the AWS Amplify structure is here you can see. So basically, the AWS Amplify structure is you are just uh, initialize the Amplify thing, then the Amplify will create that whole infrastructure for you as a form of cloud formation. Just create inside the bucket. So basically, we have that all IAM roles and permissions and the cloud formation inside the code, inside the bucket. So let's start. Basically, for Amplify, we are just using that CLI, like how we have our AWS CLI, AWS command line interface, which is used to communicate with our actual AWS account. Like the same thing, we can able to communicate our web application from our CLI. But initial stage, if you are a beginner, more than focus on from CLI, we are just focusing from GUI, because we can able to understand more quickly, and it's very useful for us. Is there any for troubleshooting things? Okay, then I'll start the demo part. First, here you can see this is the uh, sample website which is done by me. It's just a job boarding thing. We can search from this, and if we click that view details, we click view details, it goes to next page. Then when I click that apply now, yeah, here there's the details we need to fill up, and when I click that submission, submit application. So here, if we give something like Ashu, Ashu@gmail.com, phone number, and experience level is so we can upload any dummy websites from here. Sorry, uh, dummy PDFs. So when I click submit application, Here you can see your application has been submitted successfully. So Ashu, here it can show this. And when we click view all jobs, it redirects into our homepage. So this is a simple application. Here, the saved application is reflect in our DynamoDB. I show this. Though here you go to tables. So first to create that job application table. When I click that explore tables, I can able to see that. Yeah, here you can see that ID, email, ashu@gmail.com, experience, name, and phone number. So what are the things we saved from our front end is now available in our back end. So basically, it's a kind of full stack application here. Instead of using like MySQL or Prisma, MySQL and other databases, I just use that AWS own service DynamoDB. So DynamoDB is nothing but it's a NoSQL database. All the values are stored as a form of key value. So here it's a key and it's a value. So for me, as just exploring that. I try to deploy our application in Amplify. So for that, I don't want to complicate it for the database. So I just go with that DynamoDB. If you are working with any other databases, you can try it with your own. Then now it's available in our application. Yeah, this is localhost. I just saved that. Now we can see how we deploy it in our uh, AWS Amplify. So first, before that, before we start, one of the prerequisites we actually need is you need to have a Amazon account. You need to have that AWS account here. So if you don't have, just go and create. In our channel itself, we create a video how to we create that account. So if you are a beginner, you just go with free tier. So free tier is just cost for around ₹2 for us. So this is the project structure. You can get the code from my GitHub repository. I just attached that GitHub link in that description. So here, the basic thing is before we start that the deployment, we actually need to configure two important files. The first one is nextconfig.json and the another one is amplify.yml. So why we actually need nextconfig.js is it should export our whole thing to that as a form of output. So here, um, if we create that Next.js application, it won't have that output as so it won't have this line. It's just showing like that. But when we try to deploy it in some of other servers or other kind of cloud, we need to do that. Basically, the output standalone is we just uh, export. We just give the output as a form of standalone and the cloud to export the thing, export our whole application. So this is the thing. And the another one is amplify.yml. So here, why we actually need amplify.yml is basically when we try to deploy our application at the end after that so we try to do that, right? NPM run build. It's a combined package at the end of our build stage. So after the build, what are the things it actually want to do to deploy our application in a server which is available for that public access. So for that, we are just written a simple YAML file. So we are just using that front end in phase. So basically, here we declare what are the conditions it need to check before it deploy the application to the real world. So here first we check the pre-build command. So because in our GitHub, we are just giving our code, not any node models, not any packages or dependencies. We are just ignore with using git ignore, right? So first, you need to install that npm CI, then build command. Build command, we are just using npm run build. So what is actually npm run build do is when you use that command, it's just build that entire application is a form of build. So it's like a single file. Then artifacts is nothing but it's a output of one entire project. So in artifacts, we are just building the base directory as .next. So here we just uh, get the get the code from the .next. Here you can see catch server because it's a Next.js application, right? So we need to fetch that .next framework as well as the files. Files is star star backslash star. We just get all the files as well as the catch is path node models. We also capture all node models also. So uh, then here after setting up that amplify and next config, we'll go with that amplify configuration. So for that, first we need to install amplify in our in our CLI itself. So here we need to install that npm. The command is npm install -g AWS amplify backslash CLI. Here, Amplify itself, it's as I previously said, Amplify itself is a command line interface. So we can, after once we deploy that application in Amplify, we are just configure all the things in like the uh, the GitHub repository connection with our Amplify, we can able to control and see all the access from CLI, like from our command line interface, it's a terminal itself. But as a beginner, when we try to deploy it first time, it's good with using with our GUI, because we can able to understand what are the things we actually do. So for that, for I just go for today, I just go with the GUI. First, we install that. I already have that npm IG install. So it will take time. And one more thing is, if you are deploying your full stack application like a front end, back end, and if you are trying to deploy the three-tier architecture, make sure that amplify.yaml is present in your root directory, because if it's inside that any of your folder inside, Amplify couldn't able to find where it start that deployment thing. So make sure it's present in that root directory. Yeah, it's installed. Next, I just use the command amplify init. So here it first asks for, do you want to continue with Amplify Gen 1? I just click that, and it's asked for some suggestions. I just not to answer. Enter a name for the project. I already done, but I just change the name. Job board job. And it asks for project information, name, environment, default editor. So Amplify just analyze our whole project and ask like what are the things we actually use here. We are just app type is JavaScript. So yeah, of course here we are just using that Next.js framework, which is one of the framework of that React library. But at the end, we are just using JavaScript, right? So app type is JavaScript and JavaScript framework is React. So source directory path is source, distribution directory path build, and start command is npm run script start. So here the other thing is initialize the project with the above configuration. I said yes. And select the authentication method you want to use, AWS profile and AWS access keys. If you are using different access keys, just go with the access key. It asks for AWS access key and secret access key. You go with that. But I have already set up the AWS profile in my AWS configure default thing. So if you want to set up that, just go to that new terminal and then AWS configure. When you click this, it shows that AWS access key and secret access key ID, then your AWS default region and data format. Once you click enter, I just go with my AWS profile. Uh, so here, please choose the profile you want to use. Default, and I have another profile. I have two profiles, so I just go with default one. Then adding backend environments dev to AWS Amplify. So it start to initialize the app in my AWS account environment, which I give using that access key and secret access key. So here you can see Amplify job board job dev, auth role, unauth role, deployment bucket. So here we need here it create a deployment bucket for the deployment, and for that authentication and unauthentication, it create a IAM role for that. So at the end, basically it all created inside the cloud formation. So it create the cloud formation itself create the three things, because here we don't create any infrastructure with our own thing. So Amplify represent us to create, like instead of us, Amplify is creating that whole thing. Help improve Amplify CLI by sharing non-sensitive project configuration on failures. Yes, I don't have any sensitive information. So it's saving initialized provider. So it gives some basic comments like, as I previously said, we can able to communicate with our Amplify from our CLI itself. But for now, I don't go with that. I just go with my CLI. Then I'll do. So here you can see uh, here you can see that Amplify, it's create the backend. So in the backend, it create the cloud formation for me in the build stage, deployment bucket name, and auth role and auth role, what's the outputs. So AWS region, exports, stack name, export. So these kind of things it have. And the types, Amplify dependent resources, export type Amplify resources, and tags. Like how actually we are creating the Next.js application, like the same thing. Amplify is creating to deploy the application in that. For that, it create that application itself. It's a bit like a build file. How we when we give npm run build, it's just create the it's a compressed version of our application, right? Like the same thing Amplify creates. So I just go with the git add dot. So before that, we need to set up that thing in our AWS. We need to connect our repository with our AWS Amplify. So here you can see job or job. I just go with create new app. I click that start building with Amplify, deploy your app. So it asks for which version control we can use, GitLab, Bitbucket, and GitHub and code commit. I have my code in GitHub, so I just go with GitHub. Sorry. And here, they start with the template. If you are try to deploy any other kind of frameworks, you can go with that thing. If you don't have any idea how to deploy that, I'll click next. Then it asks for authentication. I already authenticated with that, so it redirect to my repo. I just give that and a main repo. Then I click the next. My code is present in the main repo, so I just won't change anything. Then I click next. Then auto detector framework is Next.js because we have .next .next file in our repo. And this two things is very important. So front end build command, how it build the front end, npm run build and build output directory. So basically using the .next, it get the output from that Next.js application and create and use a new service role. Service roles policies. I already have a role. Uh, it already have that CloudWatch logs, limit write, log group. So it automatically configure. When you create for your first time, it's asked for like create a new role, and I just click next. I don't go with any advanced setting, and we are just checking repository details, GitHub, app settings, advanced settings, then save and deploy. We are just trying for that. We just see the logs. We are just seeing the logs. Well completed successfully. Uploaded catch artifact. The build is successful, and we are waiting for the deployment. Deployed. Here you can see deployment completed, and it shows that the URL. Here itself, it provides the domain. When we click that, here you can see this is my local host, and this one is my main.amplifyapp.com. So here I can able to search like the same thing, view details, and apply now. Yeah, guys, we are completed that. And one more thing is, if you have any kind of environment variable, for example, if you are trying to deploy your application in that time, you have that database, like you can use MongoDB or MySQL. In that time, if you have any environment variable, just go to here, hosting. Here, environment variable is there, and manage variables, add new. Here, you can add that variable and save. Once you click the save, you can able to access, because in our GitHub repo, they won't push our env file, right? So you need to save your environment variable here, then you can use. Yeah, guys, that's it. So I hope you like this video, and if you are a cloud beginner as well as if you are a full stack developer and you want to deploy your application, the entire application, as quick or as possible, Amplify is a good option. Share with your friends, and if you have any queries, comment below. Thank you so much, guys.